Pope Francis is about to make climate change history. The questions are how and why. Join us with all the latest from the Eternal City, Church Militant's pinch hit Rome correspondent, Dr. William Mahoney. Dr. Mahoney, Pope Francis once again laying aside the papal tiara and donning his scientific mitre. What's going on?
So he did a recent interview on Rai, which is public television in Italy, where he said that he will in fact be attending COP28 in Dubai. Now, COP28 is the United Nations climate conference. The first one was held in Berlin in 1995. So, Brad, by the way, I like your green tie. I see you're supporting his environmental efforts.
Hey, I'm on board with green, everything. So I'm pro-green, and thank you for noticing. So, William, what do you think are the implications of this decision to attend this climate summit, this COP28? What are the implications for the Catholic Church on this?
The implications are that he's going to something which is, let's say, out of his lane. The Pope's job is to lead the Church on faith and morals, to give us doctrinal clarity, and to help us distinguish right from wrong, and to save our souls. For him participating in this climate conference, he's giving this optics that he's lending credence. Almost, it's going to be perceived as the church now blesses climate activism. So this is just outside his purview. I mean, is he an expert in climatology? So should I go to him now for weather updates instead of going to AccuWeather? I mean, this is what he's doing here. But the dangerous part about it is the optics that he's giving to make it look like the church approves this.
Yeah, and that Laudate Deum came out on October 4th, Feast of St. Francis. He drops all these data points out there. Then he didn't draft those himself. Somebody else is putting them in front of him, and then the question is who and why. Do you believe, William, the Pope's presence at COP28 could really directly impact global environmental policies around the world and for years to come?
It definitely could. The extent to which I'm not sure. I mean, that remains to be seen. However, the real takeaway here is that since the first climate conference was held in 1995 in Berlin, no pope has ever attended it. So this is the first time historically a pope will actually be attending this conference. So that just lends a huge what's the word? It just gives the optics that the church is now approving this and blessing this and is on board with this. Let's face it, it's a leftist talking point. It's a leftist agenda. You don't see conservatives, or at least not many, I've not seen many, who promote the climate change narrative and all the climate alarmism. And if we don't do something in the next 10 years, we're all dead. You just don't see that. It's a leftist talking point. And one more thing is with the United Nations. I mean, the United Nations, they go against so many of the church's teachings on morality. They're for all kinds of things and promoting and pushing all kinds of things that the church is against. So for him to go there and lend credence to the United Nations, especially on this leftist talking point, is just so outside of what his real role is as the Pope, not talking about heaven or hell or leading souls to heaven.
Yeah, one of the talking points out there, UN and these globalist outfits are all about population control, and you just can't get away from that topic. It's one thing to promote, to be on board with taking care of God's blessings, his earth and all this, but to actually say, well, if all you humans just got off the planet would be a lot better off, is a bit far. And of course, Pope Francis is not saying that, but globalists are and have been for many, many years. Do you think, William, the Pope's active involvement in this COP28 conference presents a deviation from the church's primary spiritual mission?
I think absolutely. How else can we interpret this? I mean, the Suprema Lex, Salus Animarum Suprema Lex, right? The supreme law is the salvation of souls. That is the church's mission. It has no other mission. The church once upon a time, up until more recent years, talked about death, judgment, heaven, or hell. The four last things. That's it, because that's all that matters from the church's standpoint. The point is to get as many people into heaven as possible by teaching them the truth that Jesus gave to us and gave to his apostles, and through direct encounters with our Lord through the sacraments. Talking about whether the weather is going to kill us or not, it really doesn't fit into that at all. And again, he's not a scientist. He's not a climatologist. He's just totally outside of his lane here.
So in your opinion, then, does this move reflect traditional Catholic values and teachings?
Does what the Pope is doing reflect that?
Pushing this climate change all the way down from Laudate Deum?
Not in a direct way. I mean, there's a very general sense where we are, humanity is the steward of creation, and we do have to take care. So we can't be completely haphazard about how we go about these things, and we do need to have care for creation, of course, but not to this extent where we're giving into leftist talking points and helping push this narrative, which scientists themselves don't agree on. So he can't come in and be the arbiter of that. It's outside his purview, which I've said about 3 times now, but that's okay. Let's say it again.
Well, what are your thoughts on the U.S. bishops aligning with Pope Francis on this issue? And, in this cause, is this a cause for concern? I mean, in September, they called actually for an end to fossil fuels here in the U.S.
I saw that. Yeah, the document that came out, it was a statement they put out. They're just jumping on board hook, line, and sinker. And it seems like the U.S. bishops, they'll talk about pretty much anything but salvation. That's what it seems like in so many cases. Now, that's not every bishop, of course. There are some bishops, some are quiet, and some do their job. But when we're talking about the bishops, we're talking about the conference, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. As a whole, though, as the conference, yes, they're pushing stuff that has virtually nothing to do with the Catholic faith. So they're just on board with this. And, as we talked about in another Rome Dispatch recently, that there's, they want to get rid of sin, and they want to focus on all this climate alarmism, which is really concerned with the safety of our bodies instead of the safety of our souls.
Let me ask you one more question, William. It goes back to liberation theology, that there was a concern that was from basically a brainchild of the communists down in South America. It was a defector, Ian Pachepa, that came out and was saying that. And that was all about, saving people from suffering in this lifetime. And that kind of gave rise to this whole social justice movement. And there's always been a confrontation on the natural level. Some boogeyman, whether it's the have or the have-nots, the poor and the rich, the bourgeoisie, always something. And it seems like this environmentalism right now, this climatism, is now the enemy, and we all have to fight. It's always, seems in the last 30, 40, 50 years, it's always been about strife and overcoming that in this world, in this lifetime, with really no, what they would call eschatology, no saving man from sin in the next lifetime. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's exactly right. And I'm not saying that they're all, diehard communists, but the strategy itself is something laid out in the Communist Manifesto by Marx. It's, you divide, everything's always divided into 2 classes. He divided it into the bourgeoisie and the proletarian. So you have the haves and the have-nots. In this case, you have those in charge and the poor people suffering as a result. So there's 2 classes. Now, the ultimate goal there is to eliminate all classes. But the way that always plays out historically, we've seen in China and Korea, all over the world, in Cuba, is that the people who are going to create this classless society become the elite power, people in power who destroy everyone else underneath their thumb. It just becomes a totalitarian dictatorship every single time. It's never played out differently. So I think that's what's underneath that drive is that ideology. Whether they know it or not, whether they've thought it out or they've even read the Communist Manifesto, that wicked way of thinking is underlying what they're doing.
Here, to put you on the spot for a minute.
Sure.
You actually know quite a bit about that whole subject because of a show that you put together. Actually, you put what you know into that show about the communist movement and the Catholic response to it. Can you give a shout out, a summary of that show for people and what it is and kind of what to look for in there?
Sure, that was Marian Moment, and it was in 8 episodes, and we just, I did a lot of research and writing. Simon Rafe hosted it, and we just went through Our Lady at Fatima, warning about Russia spreading her errors, and then we went through the various places what those errors were and how Our Lady combats those errors by being the perfect disciple and our model, and also how it played out in the world, Russia's eras, from the Bolshevik Revolution up into China and Cuba and so forth. So we really show how this plays out in the real world. Horrible things like the Cambodian genocide under Pol Pot, which is so terrible that they just brought people into fields and killed them. Till this day, when it rains really hard, bones are still coming up from those fields. Really terrible stuff. That's communism, and that's the ideology. How it plays out. So that's what that show is about. There was another one we did recently called Rose and Hammer, where Simon, Rafe, and I were talked about this show. You can go find that too and show clips from it, which was fun. That was a fun project.
Yeah, okay. So come to our site, churchmilitant.com, and look up Marian Moment and find out about this continuing movement that I just have sneaking suspicion that this whole climatism and environmentalism is still communist talking points, divide and conquer. It's destroying economies, it's destroying livelihoods and families, unsettled science being pushed even by people in miters all the way to the top, having a dramatic impact on families out there and individuals. Pope Francis attending the climate summit of COP28 and the U.S. bishops being in lockstep show the hierarchy is really out of its lane, as Dr. Mahoney was saying, of teaching faith and morals, a lane which is safeguarded by the Holy Spirit, and instead barreling down a road with the only guardrails on this climate agenda being the spirit of the age. To give secular press a heads up on this Deposit of Faith Coalition, we'll be hosting a press conference at the Four Seasons Hotel in Baltimore on November 14th, 2023, to coincide with the annual meeting of the U.S. bishops there this month, actually. The press conference will feature expert speakers on various aspects of climate agenda, including a Nobel Prize winner and leading authorities who know actual science. Church Militant will begin covering the event live on its website beginning at 12:30 Eastern Time, stretching to 3:30. Don't miss it. Dr. Mahoney, thank you so much for shedding light on this climate agenda and helping Catholics see it for what it is.
You're welcome.
Thanks again for watching today's episode of Rome Dispatch. This show is brought to you by donors like Real Estate for Life. If you're looking to buy or sell a home and want to support our mission, visit realestateforlife.org. Again, that's realestateforlife.org. Be sure to tell them Church Militant sent you. God bless.